Batman Caped Crusaders is a new show on Amazon Prime, being executively produced by Bruce Timm, who is basically the godfather of modern superhero animation. He's responsible for Batman the Animated Series, Superman the Animated Series, Justice League the Animated Series, Justice League Unlimited, and a whole lot of DC animated movies. And this show is him returning to his roots of the noir Batman show. And it's quite good on the whole. We only have one season at the moment, though the second season is coming out later this year. But even with only one season, we have a lot to talk about, most notably the villains. While they are classic Batman Rogues Gallery's villains, they've all been given a bit of a reimagining, and we're going to take a quick look at the new changes to these characters. The Penguin. Now the show does make some good changes to the villains, and I quite like what they've done with the Penguin, turning him into a woman who is a show performer at the Iceberg Lounge. There's just something more charming about the horrible nature of their personality and ruthlessness that the Penguin has when she's a woman. I don't know why, but somehow I actually find it just slightly more likeable. She's still just as ruthless and cutthroat, even having a custom military-grade missile launcher on the top of her ship so she can blow up buildings around Gotham whenever she feels like it, and she feels like it fairly often. And below the ship are suitcases filled with the dead bodies of those who have crossed her, including her own son, whom she thought was betraying her. He wasn't actually betraying her, but she doesn't actually seem to care that much when she finds out.
Do you have any idea what this means?
That Thorn got you to kill the wrong son?
No! It means that rat's gonna squeal about the whole operation.
Now, admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of Penguin normally. I find him kind of simple and dull in his violence, but this show does the character well. Like I say, I think giving him this little edge of personality as a performer, and also giving him just a little bit more charm as a woman, it kind of adds something to the villain. It takes away from just the base violence of him. And I have to say that I personally prefer this version. Although I did actually quite enjoy the Colin Farrell live action version. But that's completely different. That's less Penguin and more just a good gangster show. Because although it is technically the Penguin and it is technically DC, it's not really Batman, you know what I mean? It's not really superheroes. It is just a gangster show. Very good and definitely worth watching if you haven't already, but it's still just a gangster show, not a DC superhero show. But anyway. But yeah, I basically think that this show gives us a fresh take on the Penguin while still being true to the intrinsic core of the original supervillain's character. So I think these are all positive changes for them. Twoface. Now I would say that this story of Twoface going from Harvey Dent to villain is probably my personal favourite that I've ever seen. I mean, that's not really saying much because the story is nothing new, really. It's the same story of a civil servant trying to get justice on the mob, only for them to burn off half his face and he goes completely crazy. But it's told extremely well, and a lot of the time they do kind of rush the story. I mean, in fairness to the Nolan films, when he does do his story, well, it's a film, he doesn't have all that much time, so he does kind of send him crazy a bit quick. But even the TV shows that have had this character's story arc have always kind of rushed it, whereas this one kind of arcs across the whole season. And they flesh out his character nicely as an up-and-coming DA who isn't actually corrupt, but still goes easier on rich people than on the poor people.
So when it's my clients, you're gunning for jail time. But when it's the rich and famous, they get a break?
Most likely this is just to garner favour with the rich for his future campaign of becoming mayor. He wants to help his own career at the end of the day. So it's not really a criminal, but he is very self-serving. And it's not very good that he does go harder on the poor people. I mean, it's one thing just to convict them rather than dropping charges on the rich, which he does do in the show. He just drops charges on Catwoman because she's a rich girl. Whereas with all the poor people, he cracks down like crazy. I mean, it's not very likeable. But it is very accurate to the justice system that exists.
Heads, I'll ask for 20 years to life. Tails, he gets the chair.
I'm not betting a man's life on a coin flip. You're an ass, Dent.
But still, that doesn't make him a criminal. However, when the mob offer him cash for his mayoral campaign, he doesn't say no. Of course, this is because he's running out of money, although for some reason he doesn't go to Bruce Wayne, which is the obvious thing to do. And in fairness, when the time comes to return the favour and let a criminal go free, he backs down. Which was dumb, as it leads to him getting a face full of acid, but still, it does sort of make him less corrupt. And going from handsome hotshot lawyer to severely scarred man, well, that wouldn't be easy for anyone, and as it turns out, it's far too much for Dent, and his mind breaks. But at least it doesn't happen instantly. We still get to see it happen in a way that actually makes sense. And it's actually helped in part by a selfish Batman. Bruce Wayne invites Harvey Dent out for lunch, and by invite I mean insists they go out and doesn't really let him say no, all in order to interrogate him for information on the criminals who threw the acid at him. He does this for his own mission of getting justice and ignores the fact that Harvey Dent is not ready to face the outside world. He has a lot more healing to do before he can do that.
Mr. Dent is a broken man in a fragile state, and you pushed him to the edge.
But you have to remember that this is early on in Batman's crusade, and at this point he only views the people around him as a means to an end. And that's actually shown a few times in this show. He doesn't even call Alfred, Alfred, he calls him Pennyworth, sort of to show how distant he is from being the Batman that we know. Now, this may all be in part because of the privilege of being a billionaire, but it's also because of him detaching himself from his emotions, so he doesn't have to feel the loss of his loved ones. And it turns him into, well, not the nicest version of Batman. Not the most violent or anything, just very disconnected from the emotions of people around him. And that's never a good thing. But anyway, them going out together is the catalyst that sends Harvey over the deep end. And he decides to get some good old-fashioned vigilante justice by hunting down and executing the people who ruined his face. And speaking as someone who loves a good revenge story, I did enjoy this, and I fully support his mission. Obviously murder is always wrong, but in all fairness, if someone deliberately burns off half your face, well, I think killing them is the natural response. Honestly, although I would say it's wrong, and I would hope that I wouldn't do in that situation, I still think a judge should go easy on you for this, because, well, they burnt off half your face. I mean, who wouldn't go nuts after that? But one of the things I love the most about this story is that Harvey Dent doesn't actually go full-on Two-Face. Sure, he's out for revenge, and he is definitely going a bit crazy, but he doesn't become a full-on crazy man who can only make decisions by the flip of the coin, like, should I put my trousers on this morning? Flip the coin. I'll go out without my trousers on. I mean, that's just a bit too crazy. He doesn't go that far off the deep end. And in a way, this actually makes him a much more believable version of the character, because that whole coin thing does go a bit far sometimes. And again, it's kind of a fresh take while still being true to the original character. So again, I quite like these changes. Harley Quinn. Now, the best thing about Harley in this show is that she has absolutely nothing to do with the Joker. In almost all versions of her, she is completely defined by the Joker, and only became a villain because of him. I mean, even in her own show, it's largely about him, but in this version, she seemingly has never met him and yet still turns into a supervillain. Although it's debatable that she's an anti-hero, at least kind of.
You're a real menace to society, Emerson. I've tried to get you to see the humanity in your employees, but nothing is getting through.
Basically, she abuses her position as a psychiatrist, getting all the personal and vulnerable information from her clients, and then uses it to manipulate them. Well, I say manipulate, she kidnaps and then tortures them until they become compliant puppies. She just uses kind of ironic punishments based on whatever is wrong with them. And then she uses their money and resources for her own goals. And while I know that that is all clearly full-on villain, the anti-hero part comes in when we learn that these people are basically evil. We're talking about rich people whose companies profit off of human misery and destruction of the environment. That sort of thing. We all know the type. It's the kind of people who dump a bunch of chemicals in the river because they don't want to pay to get rid of them properly. That costs money. And instead all that happens is a few thousand children get cancer. And that actually happens far too often. So in that sense, it's kind of hard to really care about these people that much.
Whoever nabs Batman will make me very happy, and whoever doesn't is dead.
Still wrong what she's doing, but it's also kind of social justice. And that kind of makes her an anti-hero, as she doesn't go after the innocent, only those that she views as criminals. The law might not necessarily view them as criminals, mainly because they've covered stuff up so they haven't been convicted, because what they're doing is definitely illegal, but still, she views them as criminals, because she knows all their dirty secrets. She's a psychiatrist, and they've told her all their dirty secrets after all. And while I enjoy her story, I have to admit they changed so much about this character that it really doesn't feel like she's Harley Quinn anymore. It actually feels like a whole new character altogether. The only real similarity is that they are both psychiatrists. So while I did enjoy her story, I wouldn't really say that this is a good reimagining. I'd say this is just a new character they brought along. But still, her story isn't bad. I do prefer the classic Harley Quinn to this version, as she's just a bit more... how to put it? Less fun, more torture. And I do prefer my supervillains to be fun. But still, it's not bad on the whole. Catwoman. Now in the modern age, Catwoman is not a hero, but she is kind of a anti-hero in some versions, or at least she, tags along with the Bat family a lot. But not in this version. No, in this version, she is a full-on spoiled socialite who has gone broke and becomes a burglar because she wants to be rich. And we do get informed more on her past life, and we learn that she was once a rich girl, but her father was rich because he was a criminal and he got caught. White-collar sort of crime, I believe, tax evasion, that sort of thing. But he got caught and he went to prison and they lost everything. Which is why she becomes a thief. I mean, otherwise she'd have to get a real job, and they don't pay that well. And I also like this take. It's nice to see her be an unashamed villain, and refreshing not to see her wrapping Batman around her finger. As I said before, Batman's kind of distant in this version, so he's in no way interested in Catwoman in that sense. Although it is very early on in their relationship, as they've only just met each other in this universe, so give it time and maybe love will blossom. But for now, Catwoman is nothing more than a thief with a bit of a Batman fetish. Even her costume is designed purely in response to his. Before she met him, she was still a thief. She just stole from the rich people of Gotham when she was invited to their parties.
Well, I hear things tend to go missing around you, Miss Kyle. A lot.
But after meeting Batman, she decided that she had to up her game. And while this character is definitely Catwoman, I still kind of feel like it was a different character. I mean, yeah, there's enough there that you can say it's her. She collects cats, she's a cat burglar, she's got the outfit, yeah, it's all fine. But at the same time, her personality does seem just a little bit different. It's subtle, sure, but the Catwoman we know may always have been selfish, but there was usually a soul in there, a small spark of compassion for a fellow man, or at least her fellow Batman. And I didn't really feel like that was there. This felt like a very simple version of her. Although in fairness, in the classic Batman the Animated Series version that Bruce Timm was a part of, he did actually make her quite a simple character in a lot of the episodes. So maybe that's just the way he views the character. And like I say, it's still very much Catwoman, it's just a more selfish version of her. Which is saying something, because she was already pretty selfish. But still, I did enjoy the character, and while I would say there are some subtle differences, again, it is still very much the same character. And it was still very enjoyable to watch her story. Although it didn't really feel like she'd be much of a reoccurring character in the future. It felt more like a one and done episode. But we'll see what happens in the future of the series.
Oof. You're 1,000 times sexier than that sketch in the paper.
Who are you?
Catwoman, dear. Obviously.
And those are my thoughts on the Batman Caped Crusaders' new take on their supervillains. But the real question is, what do you think of these character changes? Are they good? Are they bad? Or are they just not big enough character changes for you to even care? Be sure to let us know what you think in the comments. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.